This is George Dionne of the Rock is George podcast, and this is a KNAC.com exclusive interview with drummer Mark Zonder of the hard rock act A through Z. You ready to get started?
Oh yeah, nice album there on your right over there. I like that.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thoroughly enjoy it. Gotta say, I thoroughly enjoy the new one that's coming out too.
Awesome. Awesome.
So, of course, today we're talking about that upcoming sophomore album by your project A through Z, entitled A2Z2. Before we get into the music, there's been kind of a lineup shuffle since your 2022 self-titled debut. When we talk about the new members, I mean, there's sort of a 6 degrees of separation here between this band and other bands you're involved in and other bands they're involved in. Why don't we start with bringing on Nick Van Dyke from Redemption?
Basically, I needed to make a change to take the band, to continue the band and move it forward. And it's kind of an interesting story. What happened with Nick is Nick and I have known each other for 30 years or a lot of years. Really, really, really good friend of mine. And he said to me, we went to see Kansas, and he said, "Hey, how about we start writing some music together? We talked about it for a long time." Okay, great, cool. So we start doing everything's rolling around fine. The band is kind of in a standstill right now. So I'm playing with Chris and Pelletieri at the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame thing where Chris is being inducted. Nick comes up to me, and he says, "Hey, I thought about this all the time, energy and effort that you put into this and, how far it got and, the labels behind it and everything." He goes, "Why don't we just continue as A through Z?" And basically I wanted to kiss him on the lips at that time, but I didn't. And then everything just started rolling. It was great. He really revived the whole thing because I had been writing with other people in the meantime, and just nothing was really coming together. But Nick really got it, and that's how that came about. Needless to say, Philip, if Mark's playing, Philip's playing, so that's kind of a no-brainer. Obviously Ray, was going to be singing, and then Jimmy Waldo, I played with Graham Bonnet, with Warlord. I just known Jimmy, and I really liked his more aggressive style of keyboard playing. And again, the thing I really learned after that first record and go round with everything that was done is I really need to surround myself, with people that I trust. Surround myself with people that are pro. And I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but there's definitely a level of professionalism, maturity, and communication, which, to be honest with you, at this point in the game, I didn't think I'd have to be revisiting and having to deal with, but it is what it is. People are people, and you move on, and that's just the way it is, and it was meant to be. The way Simone got involved is obviously he mixed the first record, and he was obviously going to mix the second record. And Nick suggested that we bring Simone in to play all the leads and all the, kind of the background Lukather, Neil Sean style orchestrated little guitar parts, because Nick just thought he was the greatest guitar player that he'd ever seen. He played with him in Redemption and everything. And there it is. And it was one of those things, I knew what Jimmy was all about. I wasn't quite sure. I mean, I knew about Simone, but I just know that he was a great mix guy that I could communicate so well with that I didn't think there was going to be any kind of problem moving forward. And just when he started turning in like the first leads and stuff, it's like I just totally fell in love with everything that was happening. I knew that we were on to something. There's something going on here. This just isn't like, okay, here's the song, here's the lead. Cool. I mean, some of the stuff he does in the background with the little picking patterns or the little semi-orchestrated part, it just adds more melody. You can never have enough melody, you can never have enough hook, you can never have enough like those rememberable lines. So very happy with that.
I have to say his guitar stamp is all over the new album A to Z 2. I mean, I instantly dialed in on that as the album played through. I'm like, geez, the guitar work on this is phenomenal.
No, absolutely. It was one of those things when he was going, I said, "Dude, keep playing more, 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 more." All these guys were, they're all playing for the song. And I told them kind of in the beginning, I go, "Let's do this. Let's just kind of go nuts. And then we can figure out later on if we have to pull things out or if there's too much." But I don't want to stifle anybody. And if, let's just say there was a keyboard part, but then all of a sudden Simone had some kind of guitar part that was just, you couldn't deny it, then we'll have to just make adjustments as we go. I was just trying to pull the best out of each guy and just let him go. There was never like, "Okay, dude, you really need to calm that down." And it was all just, "Hey, just go. just do what you're going to do, go. There's a few times on there I told Simone, I go, that's cool, but can you just keep repeating that line behind the chorus? You played it into it, but then, just like play more, play more. And a lot of guys are obviously conscious that they don't want to overplay and they don't want to, do that kind of thing. But I mean, the stuff was brilliant, and again, you can't have enough melody line. I mean, I ran into the same thing with Philip, and I did it on the first record too. It's like, I understand where you're coming from, Philip, but on these 4 bars, how about you play with the drums and make it a bass solo per se? Like make the bass really jump at that point, even though it's part of the song and it's not a solo, but this is that type of thing that I really want you to shine. I really want you to come out. And, as drummers would say, I say, I need more high notes, whatever that means. I need to like hear you come out and you're jamming and you're, ad-libbing or whatever you got going on, because each guy, is that good. And again, if you have a good hook, I don't care what you have on either side of it. As long as you have that hook, you're pretty much good.
How long had you guys been working on this album? I know that you had sent me some samples not about a year ago, so I'd assume it's prior to that.
Yeah, there is that period though where the label, you need X amount of time. That's kind of that lag time of about 6 to 8 months, after you turn a record in, because they got vinyl, they got other releases, they got to get everything, they got to do all the label stuff. And they've been absolutely phenomenal. Metal Blade has been great. They've totally stepped up, totally invested. They brought everybody out to do the videos. You got 2 guys in Europe, Chicago, Arizona, 5 days of video shoots and photos. They want to do this the right way instead of, kind of the last time we kind of had to do it, by hook or by crook. But they saw what could be happening, and they heard the demos of this new stuff and where it was going. And like they say, it just first time around, it just wasn't meant to be to go out and play live. So you kind of take it for what it is and just kind of roll with it, and do the best you can, and, give 110%. And then after that, it's kind of out of your hands.
And you guys described this album as a little darker than the first one, but I feel like you still maintain that beer commercials meets Cobra Kai arena rock sound.
No, absolutely. That a lot of that sound comes from, the analog drums, no samples, no triggers, none of this cut to the grid stuff, so it does have a little flow to it. It's not so mechanical. Um, but again, if you have that big hook, and I think I'm not sure that there's more space on this album, but there's definitely air and space. I think what we did really well is on a couple songs like Wordless Prison and Chaotic Symphonies is we did in 5 to 6 minutes that most prog bands would take 12 minutes to do. I didn't want to get into the whole 12-minute thing. To be at this point in the game, it's kind of a waste of time. I'm looking at the record as 10 single possibilities, 10 songs that really catch somebody, all hooks kind of thing. So, but we took it and we took songs like that and made them that good where it went part from part. It was hook to hook. It wasn't just like a hook to 2 minutes of jamming, and screwing around and trying to come up with these cute accents that nobody at the end of the day cares about and nobody remembers. It's about the hook. It's about the vibe. And more importantly, I think in all these songs, it's kind of the peaks and the valleys. It's like the dynamics. And I think that's a really, really strong thing that this band has. And I think that appeals to people.
Do you do any lyric writing or do you just leave that up to
Oh
Ray?
God, no. Oh God, no. And you don't want to hear me sing either. No, 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 no. It's just playing the drums and the electronic stuff. I like to implement that into the various sounds and the different soundscapes that we have. And all that stuff is just done live behind my kit while I'm playing, because when we go out and play live, it needs to be part of that. I can't be like, oh, what am I going to do? Oh, I programmed it in the studio. What am I going to do? So it's all live, and I just try to add my influence, I guess you could say, and my stamp on it in that way. But no, there's no singing, no lyric, there's no bass lines, none of that.
Well, you got, I think, 4 singles out. You might have 3 singles out now with one on the way, but you've released I Am Numb, The Remedy, Nothing Is Over. I think the next one is Fly Away. Where you say you wanted an album of 10 singles, which I think that you have, was it difficult which ones you wanted to put out at what time?
Um, well, actually, right now on today's date, only I Am Numb and Nothing Is Over is out.
Uh,
The Remedy comes out June 9th. And I'm not sure what's after that. We got a few things in store that we're planning, but I'm not sure what's in store after that. It kind of is because it's difficult, but it's easy at the same time. Okay, first of all, you're not going to lead with a ballad. Okay, you're not going to lead with Now I Walk Away. Okay. Personally, myself, I think that's the song that's going to knock the doors down. I think that's the silent lucidity for this band. It has that Genesis kind of Peter Gabriel intro where Ray's doing this thing. It's an 80s power ballad, but modern. Then you kind of kick into the affected drum sound. Then you pop right into this kind of Sabbathy, heavy, not droning, but power ballad kind of thing with a great hook that appeals to men, women, children, and dogs. I mean, it's not one of those lyrics like, oh, what's this guy singing about? It's a power ballad straight out of the 80s, but done very modern. Obviously, you can't lead with that. So you start looking at energy, you start looking at power, you start looking at things that are kind of short and sweet, kick you in the face. And that's how we came up with that. Obviously, Nothing Is Over and I Am Numb are up-tempo type of songs. It was actually Nick's idea, and I went with it with The Remedy as the third song. Little different. We didn't need another straight-up power song. It's a very unique song in the feel and the groove, but again, gigantic hook. And that's what it's all about. It's the hook. It's got that big background thing that Ray was doing. It's got the cool opening drum fill. Kind of has a little bit of funk. It gets away from just up-tempo, rock tunes. I mean, it's been, it's not the Booga Tugga song all the time. Booga Tugga, Booga Tugga, Booga, all the time. We kind of covered that a little bit already. So it's a cool, not middle of the road, but again, man, it really just comes back to catchy and that hook. I want to breathe Ray's lyrics during that thing and the way it's set up and the way he sings, that's very memorable and it sticks really well.
Now, I believe at one time that you were going to combine two of these songs to make one long song.
Well, no, what I wanted to do, I didn't want to make a long song. What I wanted to do is kind of like what a band would do in a live concert, where they kind of go from one song and tie it to the next. So that's what we did on Fire Away into Now I Walk Away. And I mean, not now, not it, going into
Running in place.
Running in Place, where on the record you can pop into the second song, but if you just put the disc on, that noise, it just goes right into it. And I pictured that very much like a live concert where you're going to hook, bands come out and play two or three songs before the singer says anything. There's usually not a lot of downtime. I wanted to really come in and impact that. I had the idea of kind of doing that as the first single, but it wasn't practical. You can't have a 10-minute single. And, I mean, it's like, okay, enough is enough. It was, like I said, I said it in the beginning, I throw a lot of stuff out, not all of it sticks, but I always figured if you come up with 10 wacky ideas and two stick, that's two more than you had if you didn't. So it's one of those things where, I'm just always kind of thinking about the band and what we can do. But I think it worked out great on the record. And every time that I listen to that and it comes in, I go, okay, this is going to really kill people. They're not going to expect it because they're going to expect just the song to kind of fade out. But then that just, again, the dynamics, it really just comes back to dynamics.
And you had mentioned earlier Metal Blade really putting the machine behind this release, getting you guys together for the music video, which wasn't really possible in the past. And I think as a result, and you obviously see it, fan response has been great. You're selling out of merch, you're selling out of vinyl editions. Things seem to be really going into an upward swing.
No, absolutely. I think a lot of it has to do with that video. And we didn't know it at first. I mean, we're not that stupid. We figured it out as the day went on, but there was a guy walking around with a camera, and I'm sure we all thought, oh, he's just getting the light reading or whatever. But he was filming all the behind the scenes video. And people need to know that all that stuff was not staged. All of us hanging out, talking and laughing and goofing around was real. And I think that really translates in that video as far as a band, because this was never meant to be a project. Again, I still think that's the ugliest word in the music business is project. But this was all just about the camaraderie. And it's funny because it's like, okay, you got Philip, Mark, and Jimmy over on this side, and we play in Warlord together, and Philip plays, on the first A through Z record, and then, you got Ray, Nick, and Simone who played in Redemption, and but Mark's played with Ray, and Simone mixed the last record, and Mark and Nick are really good friends, and blah blah blah. So it was this kind of a weird 6 degrees kind of thing going on. But it's amazing how everybody got along really, really well. Because again, everybody was pulling in the same direction. Everybody believed in what we were doing. And it sounds funny, but they bought in. Everybody bought in. They knew what we were doing. It doesn't hurt also when you have the label that standing behind it all and, whether it's pro production, which it was, or a nice dinner or two or three or four, or just being taken, we were taken care of. We felt like someone cared. And I think that translates to all the guys, especially guys that have been around and have been on highs and have been on lows and been in big bands and been in, grinding it out. So I think it really meant a lot to everybody. And, everybody definitely had a smile on their face, that's for sure.
Has there been any marketing issues with the name? Because it could visually, it could be A through Z, it could be A to Z. You name the album A to Z 2. It gets a little mind-boggling, and searching the internet sometimes that's not the number one thing that comes up.
Not really, because if you stick the word band behind it, it works really well. Um, you know, again, you kind of go with what you think works, and then certain things pop up later that you didn't kind of realize, perhaps. Again, one of those things that works in our favor, though, when you start talking about alphabetical, we're sitting up at the front, and compared to where my name is, my whole life's been at the back. So, if there was record stores today and people walked in, guess what would be right up in the front, So, not really. It's pretty well established after that first record. We have the different social media sites and all that kind of stuff. And I've never really heard people say that they can't find it per se. Obviously, A through Z isn't like saying Marillion or saying, but I'm sure at the same time, Boston and Kansas, well, there was no internet when they started, but, Boston and Kansas in the beginning, put in Boston, oh, it's a city. Or, I mean, it's like, you kind of have to deal with it. It's just kind of what it is, but you stick band behind it and it just rolls right out.
Another great album cover for the new release. You got the A to Z theme playing out there, primarily with the alligator and the zipper, but you got some secondary things in there too. I believe the artist is Hugh Syme.
Yep, Hugh Syme. Yep.
And you've used him for the first one, right?
Yeah, he did. He did all the Rush album covers. He did Perfect Symmetry, Fate's Warning. He's done a million. He did a bunch of Megadeth ones and stuff. I've known him for quite a while, and just a really cool guy, really good guy. And I just really like his stuff. But the reason the ant and the zebra show back up on that front covers, when they signed on the first cover, they had a contract that they had to show up on two covers. So we had to include them on the second one. No, that's just a classic Hugh Syme thing. And if you look closely, I'm not sure if they sent you all the art or just the cover.
They sent me all the art.
Oh, okay. So you see, there's stuff kind of hidden all over the place. There's different. It's classic Hugh Syme. And again, though, when I started this whole thing, it had to be big. If you're going to go, you got to go. Everything has to be done to the best of your ability, and just pushing the envelopes. And again, I can't sell, a $50 steak and give you a $15 hamburger and expect you to come back or expect you to be happy. So, and I just think this kind of music especially really lends itself to full albums, vinyl, artwork, and even going beyond the artwork, in the packaging. There's, each song, we came up with kind of an original street sign that fits each song. Not a traditional street sign, but just something so when you're sitting there listening to it and you can look at it and read it and go over it and kind of look for all those Hugh Syme things that show up on the album covers. But I just thought it was important. I also thought this album cover really fits the music. It's edgier, it's heavier, it's got more teeth, as they say. Even though the first one had teeth too, they weren't so vicious teeth. But I think it works really well, and it fits the motif of the music, which I always think is important, because if you flip-flopped them, it wouldn't make any sense to have that first album with the alligator and then the second album with the zebra and the thing. I think it fits really well together, which is important.
So now you're 2 albums in. You don't want it to be called a project, it's a band. When can we start expecting some live performances by A through Z?
We're pushing and pushing. The big thing with the label starting 6 months ago, 8 months ago, whenever we were getting down to like serious talking, is that we all realize and we want, touring. We need playing. We feel that it's like 70% of the game. Yeah, it's great to have a great album and cute artwork and hey, your video looks really cute and got 60 million hits, but especially this band, because I got to tell you a quick story. We're doing the videos, okay? We're in kind of a big warehouse or whatever. I'm the only one really playing because no one else is plugged in. They're playing, but they're not plugged in. They can't hear it. My drums are stuffed with towels to make it a little less quiet. Needless to say, I have to play all 15 takes of a song because I'm in the background. So if they're shooting the keyboard player, and I'm playing just full out. I'm just giving it everything I got. And I felt it, I could hear it, I could see it when we're playing, especially when we did the full band shots, and I would look out and I'd see Philip over there, and I'd see Ray and Simone and Nick and Jimmy. I'd go, this is really going to be. I don't think anybody really envisions what this is going to be like on a stage. It's going to be pretty intense. You're talking about really high-end players that care, playing really good songs that are tight, you know. So it's going to be exciting, but we all realize and we all want this. We're having people out there looking for the tour, looking for the gigs. Kind of all agreed that the ideal thing would be a 40-minute slot opening for somebody, and it can really vary as far as the crowd. It can really vary as far as the style because the band can kind of fit a lot of different things. Now, we're not opening up for Slayer. That's not going to happen. But there's other ways that it can go. As compared to us, if we go out and do like the headlining club thing or whatever we're going to do, it's a little bit of a different ball game, but we all realize, all you need to do is play a few shows, the word of mouth, the people shooting videos, us shooting videos. I mean, that's the greatest promotion that you can have, especially a band like this that has basically rock stars on that front line. You're not talking about, okay, they sounded really good, but there was no energy from the band. The guitar player sat there and played like this, and the keyboard player was over there like sulking or crying in the corner. It's like you got like bona fide rock stars, on that front line playing that, been there, done that. So the magic was there. There's absolutely no doubt.
We have to get you on the next Dream Theater tour, I think.
Anything, any kind of tour would be great.
Now, when we last spoke, we were talking about your other band, Warlord, which Jimmy Waldo's in and Phil's in as well. We were talking about Free Spirit Soar, and since then, you guys have released quite a bit of material, and you've been out playing on tour. So, how did that all go?
Giles does a great job pushing that, very much so. We had a lot of stuff that the label was interested in putting out. A lot of it has to do with just the interest from High Roller, who's been great. They have interest in doing things and putting things out, and we have the ability of putting it together and getting them out there. And, I can only go through my computer so many times, to find old stuff. But yeah, it's just a matter of trying to keep the band relevant and pushing it forward. Playing the shows is always just fun with those guys and playing those 17 songs. I love doing that. So we're just kind of doing it because we can. If the day comes and no one wants to hear it or no one cares, well, that might be a different scenario. But as we sit right now, are we playing the Enormo Domes? No, but we're having a good time. And I love playing with these guys. It's very casual, it's very easy. Really, really, really good guys, really good players. And we just go out and kind of have a good time and play, And so it's good. So you kind of take advantage of it when it comes along because, a lot of musicians have said, and I've been in the situation, opportunities it's not the 80s anymore. The opportunities just don't come around as much as they are. So you kind of want to take advantages of them when you have them. And yes, they can lead to other things, and that's great. But just the fact that you have the opportunity now to do those kind of things instead of, swimming in the demo pool, let's just say, and like nothing's happening and you're, nothing, zero, and you're pushing and pushing. The object is when you get it to a certain point is to not let it slip away and to push forward. as much as you can. Now, are you going to be able to get it all the way up the hill? Maybe not, but if you try, at least you can get partway up the hill, and keep it going and get something out of it that you like.
Do you have more opportunities in Europe than, say, the United States?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Also, too, I'm sure all the bands from Europe know that the whole thing with the United States and bringing guys in from foreign countries, you got this whole visa thing, and it's just money. Actually, what bit us last time, Warlord was supposed to play Hell's Heroes, and it was talked about 5, 6 months ago, and it was all set in motion. And Giles, as the manager, kept pushing on the promoter, saying, "Hey, we got to get this visa thing. Got to get the visa thing." And they said, "Oh, we'll take care of it. We'll take care of it. We'll take care of it." And basically, it came down at the end that it wasn't going to happen because the time ran out. Basically, they couldn't get it done by the time it needed. And if it was going to happen, that would have cut our trip to Japan. It would put it in jeopardy because you have to turn in your passport. So when you're doing this to get the visa, which they supposedly get it back to you, I mean, I got mine back here in LA in 3 to 4 days, but Germany and Japan and consulates, I mean, all of a sudden you're turning it in so you can play Hell's Heroes in America, and then you turn around and, well, wait a minute, I got to get on a plane tomorrow to go to Japan, but I don't have a passport. Causes a problem. So that got completely bought, screwed up. So that's why we didn't play Hell's Heroes. It wasn't us. We were ready to play. We were ready to go. But that's just the way it happened. And so that's the visa thing. But I would think, the European thing, but you never know. You get the opening slot, the same thing. We're opening up for Priest in one gig July 2nd in Italy. And so we're playing a couple shows around that just because we're there. But, we're not doing the whole tour. It would have been great to be able to do something like that and really do a whole tour. But again, when the opportunities come up like that, you don't go no. You always say yes, and then you figure it out because they don't come up that often.
Indeed. So last week I was at a show at one of my local venues around here, and it was the Graham Bonnet Band. Absolutely
Okay.
forgot that you played for Graham Bonnet back in 2016 for
Yep.
his album The Book, and there was a live release too, Here Comes the Night. What do you remember about working with Graham?
Um, just playing those songs, playing those Cozy Powell parts. The thing I did when I got into that band was I was going to honor Cozy Powell and honor the songs in the original band by playing those songs note for note. I learned them note for note. I didn't get in there and go, okay, this is close enough, whatever. But I love playing those songs. There's something about playing those songs, and there's only so many of those. Oh, it's Graham Bonnet kind of moments, that get you by. But no, it was. I love playing those songs. So it's just that's what I loved about it. It was cool playing those songs. It was cool working with Jimmy Waldo and Conrad when we were writing the music for that album. And actually, one of my favorite song actually off that is "Where Were You?" I think that's what it's called, and it's something that me and Jimmy worked on. I mean, we did it right here. Jimmy was sitting right next to me here in the studio, and it had a really cool vibe to it and a real cool groove to it, and it worked out. It worked out really well. But no, just really getting to work with Jimmy on that one was probably the highlight. Just getting to like really know him, and not in a like high pressured situation kind of thing, like where kind of thing. It's just really casual. And he lived very close to me, so he'd always come over here and we'd do this and do that and whatever. But no, just a really, really great guy, and obviously Warlord and A through Z. So that's basically what I get. That's basically what I got out of that one. I can say, on a
Long
positive
lasting
note.
relationships.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Someone I can trust. That's very, very important.
So another guy I'm interviewing next week is Chris Caffery. You worked on a project with him too,
Yep.
Spirits of Fire,
Yep.
in 2019, and another album in 2022. Are you guys going to be working again on a third album at all?
I don't think so. I think the label like kind of flushed that one. That was kind of a weird that was a project. As much as getting to meet and hang out when we did the videos for the first one with Ripper, Steve DiGiorgio, totally cool. Chris, totally cool. Guys, to hang out while we did the videos and stuff like that. I don't think the label wanted to do much more with it. It kind of turned into kind of a project. When you start changing singers after the first go round, it's kind of weird. that kind of thing. But Chris is a really, 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 really nice guy. I kept pushing him. I said, dude, A through Z opening up for Sabotage. What's the problem? I mean, what's the problem here? Don't worry, I'm not going to push you on the TSO thing, but what's the problem? I mean, because we toured, Fates Warning toured with Sabotage a lot back in the Parallels deal, back then. We actually toured with him a couple times, and I think one time the original drummer was in the band, and the second time Jeff was in the band playing the drums. But I remember a lot of stuff. I mean, you got to remember this is a long time ago, but I remember playing with them, way back when.
I got another long time ago question for you, actually. Um, we've talked a couple of times, but I never really got into Fates Warning with you. And I just wanted to touch upon A Pleasant Shade of Gray from 1997, actually the album that got me into Fates Warning. And we talked earlier about A to Z having a really long song, but this one was actually a really, really, really long song. It was one song split into 12 parts. And looking back on that, what are your memories of that particular album and putting it together?
If Jim had his way, it would have been one long song with no cuts in it whatsoever. That was his idea. I think the label kind of, I don't want to say put their foot down, talked them out of it, whatever the case may be. I'll never forget, besides the fact that I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I remember playing that live. I had a big rack behind me that had the sequencers and the samplers. Now you can do it in a laptop. Okay. You don't need it. You just do the whole thing in a laptop. No big deal. The thing I'll never forget, and as you noticed on that album, there's a lot of like electronic drum stuff going on. There's a lot of sequence stuff. That wasn't keyboard stuff. That was all like drum stuff that, a lot of it was the stuff that I came up with, like the low thumping sounds or whatever the case may be. So it all had to be programmed. It needed to be programmed into like this $200 Roland drum machine that we would take into the studio that we'd spit back out and then we'd record the record and so on and so forth. I'm at Jim's house in New Hampshire. We're spending hours and hours programming this stuff. And this isn't the days of a computer where you back everything up. Okay, that's not it. So working all day. Dinner time comes and I get up and I hit the plug and the whole thing that we did all day goes down. That's my fond memory. The good news is when you get to that point, you know what you're doing. It's not like we lost something that, oh, what did we do? We knew what had to be redone. It was just all the time and the energy spent. Like I said, today you do it on a laptop and you have a backup on a floppy or on a USB drive or whatever.
USB.
Yeah, so yeah, I dated myself with the old floppy there, but I mean back then that in the middle of that set, I would be changing floppy disks and loading on the fly because it didn't hold the memory. That's the things that you had to do back then. People don't realize it, and the backing track. Oh my God, this was like a whole production of me hitting buttons and changing buttons, and if you hit one wrong, it's over. So no, I thought that album was great. I thought playing it live was fantastic. I thought it had amazing emotional kind of parts as well as just like kind of crazy parts to it as well, like jamming and like that up-tempo proggy stuff. But especially like the last song on the record, whatever part that is, it's just such a slow build that I used to love that. It's just very heavy in a slow kind of way. But no, I thought that thing was brilliant. I think there's a couple songs out of it that, could be quote singles per se, kind of thing. It's not all long. It's just they're put together and just the brilliance of being able to put 10 songs together and have it flow that well, is an accomplishment in its own right. So no, I love that record. I thought it was great.
It's tough as a fan trying to find your favorite part of it. Now, was it part 7 I liked, or was it part 5 that I liked?
What screws me up the most is when we were doing that, we had names for it. Oh, that's the Kansas part. Okay, that's the I don't know, take out the garbage part, whatever. I mean, we had our own names. And then when it came out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I have no idea what part 5 is. I have no idea when people say, hey, dude, number 7, what were you doing? I don't even know what number 7 is. Until I go back and listen to it, I don't know what it is. So it was kind of interesting because we had different names for it when we were doing our thing.
In the midst of all that you got going on between Warlord and A through Z, are you working on anything else?
No, that's kind of keeping me busy. I'm kind of doing the A through Z thing all day long. Metal Blade's been great. We have a whole 2 month rollout that started with the actual release of the first. Well, we did it a little beforehand. Every couple of days or some kind of social thing that we're rolling out, doing in collaboration with the label and us, and just doing everything we possibly can. I mean, I actually filmed like 11 video things. I did 4 playthroughs. 2 of them are out already. I did videos, like technical videos for drummer guys, like, hey, my whole thing on the hi-hat, my whole thing about the electronics to really explain. I did a whole thing about explaining what my drums are and so on and so forth, and my miking techniques and what I use and how I use them, and just not really instructional, but just so people get to see an inside look of kind of like what's happening, behind the drums and how I view things and look at things. So we have a lot of that kind of stuff going on that we're going to be, putting out as well. Just trying to promote. It's kind of like one of those things you just can't stop doing, and I'm always thinking about it. Yeah, I'm always open, and I do record for other people because I am set up, here just to record, straight away without a problem. So I do that a lot for other people. But right now I'm kind of in the midst of kind of relearning the A through Z album because I don't want to get caught short. Hey man, there's a 2 or 3 weeks from now, and like, oh boy, and then you go, oh, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to be in town next week or whatever. Like I'm always that guy that wants to get it done way ahead of time. And I think Graham Bonnet said it best, God bless him. He goes, I think Mark had the drum parts down to the album before he joined the band, you know, that kind of thing. So I just like, you got time. If you have the time, take care of those things. Because anybody that's ever been in a band knows you never have enough time to record the record. You always get cut short at the end when you think, you're getting ready for something. Life gets in the way. And all of a sudden you thought you had a week to prepare, but well, wait a minute. Now I only have 2 days because the power's going out on 2 days or doing maintenance or whatever. I mean, things happen. It happens to everybody, not just me. But that's why I've always been, get it done now. Do it now. Get it if you have the time. What else are you going to do? Eat bonbons? I mean, like, get it done. You have to get it done. And the truth is, myself, I'll sleep better if I know, okay, I did my 2 hours today. I worked them. I did, I got it. I'm getting closer. I know. And it's just time. There's no magic. It's just like any musician or professional athlete will tell you, you just have to do the work. You have to put in the time. That's all there is to it. Unless you're naturally gifted, which I know nothing about, that, God bless, but I need to work it.
I feel like it's only a matter of time before you end up on an Alcatrazz album, though.
You never know. You never know. My lawyers are talking to them right now. No, I don't, again, like we mentioned earlier, when the opportunities come, I mean, I recorded, Jimmy did a record called Highway Sentinel, I think is what it was. And I played on that. And, David Reese, I think, sang on that. And I played on, I think partially of Jack Starr's song, his record. And I think the story kind of goes the next record. He's definitely getting in contact with me. But no, I like doing other people's stuff. I like it. And I get to ask the question all the time, and I tell them, I go, I don't care if it's Jack Starr's thing, I don't care if it's your uncle's thing, Fate's Warning, A through Z. I approach them all the same. You just listen, and then you play, and you get creative, and it's not like, oh, I'm recording, Johnny's record, so I'm only giving it 50%, or hey, I'm taking away these two cymbals or what. It's the same exact thought process. It's not like, okay, go in and boom, tap it, give them 2 quick takes and get out. My big thing is when I record for other people, I tell them flat out, I'll record it until you're happy. Okay. It's not like some guys are like, okay, here's my 2 takes, pick which one you like. It's like, no, if you hear something or whatever, it's really easy. I'm the master of the punch in. It takes 5 seconds. It's no big deal. It's like, it's not a big deal. And they get what they want. And that's the whole point. If I'm charging someone money to do something, they better be happy with it. I mean, that's part of, I got to keep up my part of the bargain. That's the deal.
Absolutely. Well, those are all the questions I have for you today, Mark. The new A through Z album is A2Z 2. It'll be out on June 6th through Metal Blade Records. Fantastic album. I loved it as much as I loved the first one. I got my pre-order in for the blue vinyl, and I want to thank you for taking the time to tell me more about it today.
No, absolutely. You're one of my favorite interviewers, and again, love the zebra there. I really appreciate your time, man.
Anytime. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Mark.